Hey guys, just wanted to take a moment to thank you for listening to SiDEBAR Forever. If you like the show, please subscribe to us at sidebarforever.com, as well as share episodes of the podcast on your social media. That way, new listeners can find us as well. Of all the wars fought in American history, the Vietnam War is the most controversial and the one that's still fraught with questions to this day. An underestimation of the enemy, fighting in unfamiliar terrain, muddy politics, and the eruption of national protest made it the longest fought war in U.S. history. But Hollywood movies produced about the Vietnam War, despite their gritty, real-life subject matter, have become favorites amongst movie fans. Films like The Deer Hunter, Apocalypse Now, Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, Born on the 4th of July, and even Sylvester Stallone in First Blood are all celebrated for their unflinching depictions of what it was like to fight in Vietnam, and also for how they addressed the toll the war took on the men who came home from that awful conflict. I'm Adrian Johnson, and I'm joined by Dwight and Swain on this episode as we tackle one of my favorite movie subgenres, Vietnam War movies.
This is my rifle, this is my gun. This is for fighting, this is for fun. This is my rifle, this is my gun. This is for fighting, this is for fun. This is my rifle, this is my gun. This is for
fun. Get him up there.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory.
All right, so we are continuing our two-parter that we began on the previous episode, talking about the 35th anniversary of Platoon. And on this episode, we're going to go into the wider expanse of the genre of Vietnam War films. And you know, certainly almost as the conflict was going on, you know, as early as 1968, you know, there were being films made about Vietnam, you know, and references to it. And I kind of wanted to start off the conversation with the odious John Wayne and his infamous Vietnam movie from 1968, The Green Berets.
Yeah.
and at full admission, okay, I don't know about you guys, but I hate to say it, but I grew up on this movie on Channel 17 TBS. It was perpetually the Sunday morning movie. You know what I'm saying? Always,
TNT.
always on TBS. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. TBS, right?
And the thing is, I liked it because one, I was young, and two, it was dealing with the military and war and Vietnam. So I was like, oh man, this is great. But as a full adult and with a bit more knowledge, when I watch it now, it's laughable. It's terrible. Yeah. It's like, what? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I guess I want to start there, and as we move forward, just kind of talk about the evolution of it. Because what's funny is that you read accounts of like even veterans at the time, before they were being shipped out, actually to Vietnam, even though they had been in the military at that time, they were laughing at it going to see the movie before they shipped out and said, that's nothing like what we do. That's nothing like our training. You know what I'm saying? And then coming back from the war and laughing at it, and it's like, hell no, it definitely is not what we're going through over there. Had you guys ever seen the Green Berets?
I may have seen it in passing, and you kept going over it because I'm not the biggest John Wayne fan in the world. Even then, before I knew what kind of racist bastard he was. Yeah. So I didn't. It didn't get to me. I always felt he was like. He always felt what people thought were his charming points. That is the way I speak. I thought it'd be stilted. I thought it'd be stilted and pretentious, and that's the worst thing it could be for me when it comes to character acting. Like don't show me a character. Be that character. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've seen it before years and years ago. Didn't make an impression on me. Yeah. Kind of what D is pointing to is John Wayne is definitely an old school actor who's, where it's all about, being big and, from more of the, before method really became a thing, he was just never going to be the character. He's always going to be John Wayne playing the character. And on top of that, to Adrian's point about the feel of the movie and in any kind of, semblance of accuracy or, feeling authentic, the filmmakers were probably playing Green Berets as if it was just like a World War I movie or a World War II movie, as opposed to a complicated clusterfuck of a quagmire, which is what, the Vietnam War was. And so, you know what I'm saying? And so actually, Adrian, I was going to ask you without jumping too far ahead. Sure. And Green Berets was 1968, 67?
68, yeah.
68. So I think it's in the late 70s. It might even have been a TV movie. The movie Heroes with Henry Winkler and Sally Field and Harrison Ford.
Oh wow, I'm not familiar, man. Go on.
Okay, so Winkler plays a Vietnam veteran who comes home, and it kind of addresses more of what we see done with Vietnam movies, where it's the aftermath of it, where he's disillusioned, he feels dissociated from society, and he tries to reunite with the people in his that he fought with, in his platoon. Kind of the way that Rambo's character does in Rambo. He's trying to seek them out and trying to make those connections because he can't connect with the world. But anyway, that's considered the first one that actually addresses it in the sense of the aftermath. I've never seen it, but I just heard about it, and I have seen clips of it. It was Harrison Ford before Star Wars. Yeah. Even though it came out in 77, they obviously shot it in 75 or 76, whatever it was. Before it was released. But anyway, go ahead and finish. I didn't mean to. No, you're fine. And I mean, that's a good segue talking about as we're moving into the 70s, after the Green Berets and whatnot, the war continues. Like 68 is the big year that the Tet Offensive happens. You know what I'm saying? Which basically changes the whole climate of the war. After that big North Vietnamese push and the Viet Cong, basically America is like, no, we need to get out. No, we're not going to win this war. It's over. No. And so eventually we do. We start removing troops by 73, and then Saigon falls in 75. And just shortly thereafter, you start having movies come out about Vietnam, as if the nation itself is trying to start to come to grips with it. So in 78 alone, you have like 3 or 4 movies come out. You got Go Tell the Spartans with Burt Lancaster. You got The Boys and Company C.
You got Coming Home with Jane Fonda, John Voight. And then the fourth one, the big one, is actually The Deer Hunter. Obviously directed by Michael Cimino with Christopher Walken, Robert De Niro, he played in The Godfather. He's Fredo in The Godfather. I'm blanking on his name.
Go ahead, keep going.
Meryl Streep, yeah. Just a really all-star cast and a great movie, you know. But the thing about those four movies is that it's just a semblance of kind of what happened over there. And to your point, Swizz, you know, again, it's at least in two of them with The Deer Hunter and Coming Home is dealing with that aftermath of as these troops are coming back and trying to reintegrate into society. You know what I'm saying? Like it shows their life, at least in The Deer Hunter, you know, life before going over there, and then shows them coming back. And then also in the case of The Deer Hunter, what's happening while they were over there. Like obviously everyone knows about the famous scene of, you know, them playing Russian roulette with Robert De Niro, and he gets away by shooting the other guards, you know, playing Russian roulette. But also Christopher Walken playing it in downtown Saigon, you know, on a gamble. You know, he's got nothing else left to lose, so he takes the gun, click, click, click. He's like, what? You know, that type of thing. You know, and I don't know, have you guys ever seen The Deer Hunter? At length?
Yeah. Doubling back, John Cazale is the
thank you. Yes,
is the actor who played Fredo, and he was also in Dog Day Afternoon with Pacino. Yeah, but his I saw The Deer Hunter, another one that I had on VHS, and I remember it being a great movie, and I remember being moved by those performances, and I remember being really haunted by that final sequence with Christopher Walken, where he plays Russian roulette and ends up blowing his brains out. Spoilers. But it was not a movie that I wanted to see again for whatever reason. It didn't have rewatchable scenes other than the reference to that. I didn't know what Russian roulette was before I probably saw that movie. I'd never heard of such a thing. But I did see Deer Hunter, and I was aware, and obviously that was the time when Robert De Niro's star was. It was. It was definitely it was taken off for him. But yeah, I did see Deer Hunter. Yeah.
Oh, okay, because the best scenes to me were actually the scenes where it was back home and you see the relationship of these guys. Like they're just normal guys, you know. And you see like De Niro pursuing this romance with Streep, you know, and that type of stuff. So when it gets over to them in Vietnam, it's kind of like those scenes are very effective, but not as effective as the scenes back home. You know what I'm saying? You know, and so that's the thing. Like America then was trying to come to grips with, okay, these guys are coming home. What now? You know, you got people calling them baby killers and so forth, but they're still, you know, they still did a job and they're back here now. You know what I'm saying? And so like the following year in 79, you have the big one, Apocalypse Now, written and directed by, partially written by Francis Ford Coppola and John Milius, but definitely directed by Francis Ford Coppola. And
John Milius,
yeah, this is a big one. You know what I'm saying? This is one that I think if you ask the average person on the street, name me a Vietnam movie, they would either say Platoon, but probably before that, Apocalypse Now. You know?
Right.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning. You know, Charlie Don't Surf. You know, that type of thing. And yeah, I can't deny it.
Or what about Born on the 4th of July? Maybe.
Not as much as this. Yeah, that one.
Tom Cruise tried that. Yeah,
it would be further down the list.
Exactly.
If you said name another one. They would eventually get to. Because Full Metal Jacket and some others would come before that one. But go ahead, Adrian.
Exactly. But with Apocalypse Now, you have like just, you know, Coppola took the film to Cannes in 79. You know, he showed it there. And in like this press conference beforehand, you know, he was saying, you know, this film is like Vietnam, like the war itself.
There were too many of us.
On était de trop dans l'équipe.
We had access to too much money.
On avait accès à trop d'argent.
Too much equipment.
Trop d'équipement.
And little by little we went insane.
Et peu à peu.
You know what I'm saying? And it was just like, wow. And I own Apocalypse Now in 3 different versions. Every special edition that's come out, I've grabbed it. I own several books on it. And the thing about it is, it's reflective of the Vietnam War, but it's nowhere near realistic. But I love that movie to death. I love it to death as an art piece, as just a memorable piece of cinema. You know what I'm saying? If you guys have you guys ever seen it? I think Swain saw that a little while ago. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Man, what do you guys think of it, man?
Cinematography is incredible, man.
Oh,
I mean, it's eerie as fuck. It reminds me of damn. The guest we had on a couple weeks ago was an old that we did an old illustrator.
David Grove.
Reminds me of an old David Grove painting, dude. I mean, I know it was done by our boy. Wasn't it done by the actual painting was done by
Bob Peak.
Bob Peak, yo.
Yes.
Yeah, man. So the whole era of less is more and chiaroscuro and shadow in the eyes and on the hard light on the left side of the face, and it was gorgeous, man.
Yeah,
it was gorgeous. Kurtz to me, Kurtz was a personification of evil, dude. You know, and he very to your point, Adrian, Kurtz very well could have been what Barnes was had he survived.
Yeah. Well, you know? those men are weapons that the military uses and that they know will get it done. They are the bulldozers that they know will dig the trench. They are the drills that they know will penetrate the side of the mountain. Like no matter what, I don't have to like this son of a bitch, but I know he will get us through this, and he will complete the mission. And that's why they're always necessary. That's why, you know, what was said in Platoon about Barnes is going to get us out of here. He's what's going to keep us, let us. That's what it is. You know, there's a greater chance of survival with this asshole than there is without him. And that's why you always have to have them in that role. And those people are born. You don't make somebody that way. They're born that way. They're definitely born that way. But I rewatched it a month or two ago, and Adrian and I were talking about it, and I was just same thing that Dwight said. I mean, I just thought it was beautifully shot. Yes. You know, some of the compositions of some of the shots were incredible, and the way the camera moved. The casting, even though casting is, you know, there were changes that were made, and and Coppola still probably didn't get everybody that he wanted. He probably got some of the people that he wanted, not all of them. But the cast was just seemingly perfect. Even Martin Sheen, as a short, kind of a slight guy, you still got a sense of him being kind of crazy and dangerous. So I definitely did see it. Now, I don't agree that it's totally unlike what I've seen in other Vietnam movies in the sense of capturing some of the heat of the jungle and the discomfort and the camaraderie between the soldiers, the separation, the losing yourself in your mission. Mission above all else. I didn't think it was totally not that, but and I don't want to jump too far ahead here. No,
please.
It seems like in terms of Vietnam War movies, you either the movie takes place in the jungle, in the war, a specific moment in time in the war, or it takes place after the war, and you see the remnants and you see the fallout and all of that. And the soldiers as they come home, or you see a story where it starts before the war, the person goes into it as one thing, goes through the experience, and then comes out of it differently.
Right.
And so this one was definitely, like you, Adrian, pointed out in our exchange prior to recording, it was really about one man going crazy, and he's sent to go get another crazy motherfucker.
Right.
And he's just crazy enough where he might be able to get close enough to kill the guy. And he does. And to some extent, without getting too far down in the weeds, there are comparisons to make with Platoon and Apocalypse Now between Sheen's character, Sheen Jr., and Sheen Sr. You know, Chris Taylor is an outsider who goes into the military. He ultimately goes in and he is accosted, or he butts heads with Barnes, who kind of becomes his father and yet his nemesis, and he kills him at the end of the movie.
That's right.
So this outsider comes in and ends up killing a guy who basically is a bad guy by the end of the film. And it's the same thing, similarly, Apocalypse Now. Let's get an outsider who nobody knows. Let's send him in to infiltrate, and then he's going to kill Kurtz, who's played by Martin Brando, which he does at the end. And that final sequence where he's killing Brando, but you can't really see anything, and the shadows and the music.
The green and red.
The colors, and then he comes out and he's covered in blood, and there's just a sea of the people in the village just everywhere, and it's like, you know, I almost wanted him to say, "Is this your king?" You know,
Right.
Yes, that's what it was. It's I'm your new king. Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's like, wow. It was crazy. That was and then the musical choices.
Yes.
And the needle drops and the use of the doors. Was it it wouldn't break on through to the other side. Was it the end or?
This is the end.
I think it was the end.
Yeah, it was the end. Okay. Yeah, it was the end. Yeah.
Oh man.
Mama. Yes, son. I want to. I love that shit,
You know what? That's another one that really lives up to the hype.
What's that?
You know, when people say something is the truth, and it's like, okay, what is the truth? It lives up to the hype. That one lives up to the hype.
Yes, it does.
For sure.
Yes, it does. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And you know, the thing with Apocalypse Now as well is, you know, there's so many touch points in it. You know, like, okay, the one of the big ones, and there's a lot of them in there, but one of the big ones for me is when all the choppers are coming in for the attack on that village. You know what I'm saying? And if you overlay Ride of the Valkyries, Wagner over that, every single time I say out loud when I watch that, when it's coming in and you hear like the chorale, like, ha, 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 and they're skimming over the waves, fuck me, man. Holy shit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me?
The power of that sequence is so great. Just to show you the pop culture reverberations of that are so immense that now in movies where kids are riding bicycles down the street, you can play that and you get the same rush. You can watch kids rolling on skateboards. You get the same rush.
Yes.
You could put it on animals running in the jungle. You get the same rush. It's going to give it to you every single time. Possibly the greatest pairing of visual and music together of all time, possible.
Oh my God!
Maybe second only to Bolero in 10.
But you know the crazy thing about that, and as much as that scene just blows my mind every single time, the thing that sits in the back of my mind too is that, you know, Ride of the Valkyries was also used in Birth of a Nation. You know what I'm saying? For almost the same effect. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, damn, that's fucked up. But I still can't deny the power of it in Apocalypse Now. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, man. And it's just, and I wonder if once that happened, you know, just in terms of Apocalypse Now being what it was and taking its place culturally in the zeitgeist, you know, if that didn't give license to Hollywood to say, you know what? Maybe now we can do Vietnam movies, but perhaps in a more populist manner. You know, maybe we don't have to be so much in a verisimilitude of military terms and so forth. What if we made this stuff kind of popular, you know, or did it in a more entertaining manner, such as this? So you start getting stuff like it starts in '83 with Uncommon Valor with Gene Hackman. You know, hey, let's go back and get let's go back and get those MIAs. Let's go back and get those guys who are in the camps there. You know what I'm saying? Let's start that. And you start beginning this cycle of movies where it's moving into, okay, these guys are coming home, but then they're starting to go back. this time we win. But before that, in 82, you have First Blood with obviously Sylvester Stallone, where it deals with a soldier coming back home looking to reconnect with his old squad, his old platoon, but he's being pushed, by the local constabulary. But it also deals with PTSD for like maybe the first time on film, albeit in a populist way, but it's showing that we have some guys that are coming back damaged psychologically and emotionally that we have to deal with. You know what I'm saying? And with that, I think, me and Swain discussed it, a few weeks back. I think it too qualifies as a Vietnam movie of sorts,
For sure, man. For sure, man. I mean, you're looking at like, okay, he comes to the town walking with his army jacket on. He looks slightly disheveled, but not out of control. He wasn't begging and bartering for money. He wasn't panhandling, anything of that nature. He's minding his own business, going through a cafe. And the county mountie decides that, you look like one of them baby killer soldier boys. What are you doing here? Who are you here to see? I'm just minding my own business. I just came through the town. Just minding his own business, man. So to me, ultimately, it's about PTSD, but more than that, it's about pushing the wrong person too far at the wrong time. I told you, leave me alone. I'm minding my own business. I'm not here bothering anybody. I'm not some vagrant I'm passing through town. Came to stop here to get some lunch, get some breakfast, But he kept pushing him, and he kept pushing him.
Why you pushing me?
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Right.
What'd you say?
Right?
I said, why you pushing me?
Why you pushing me?
Right? So, you push the wrong one, it shows a show, man. Pop goes to the dragon, man. Pop goes the weasel, man. You push me too far, And to me, because the only thing I would say the reason he doesn't suffer from PTSD to me is because he wasn't actively, needing help mentally. He was under control. He's minding his own business.
Well,
doing his thing.
but keep in mind though, PTSD. That's not how PTSD necessarily works. Post-traumatic stress. You can get post-traumatic stress disorder from a car wreck. You can get it from having an alcoholic parent or any kind of a traumatic situation can give you that. So you can still function. But there is a dissociation. Yeah, there's a dissociation. There's that trigger that happens. But Adrian and I were talking about this when I rewatched First Blood. Maybe that's around that same time. I saw Apocalypse Now, about it being a Vietnam movie, and it's a popcorn movie. It's a Hollywood studio movie. Not unlike Platoon to some extent. It is a Hollywood movie, but yeah, it definitely qualifies as that. And I actually had come up with a couple of others that I'll mention later on that I think you may not be thinking about, but they do actually kind of qualify in the same weird way. I'm gonna throw it out before the council and see if if it gets accepted or rejected.
All right, you got me on the edge of my seat. Okay, go ahead, proceed.
Yeah. Right, I know my time back though.
But First Blood was 1982.
That's right.
And then obviously 86 was Platoon.
That's right.
Okay. And did you ever see? I've never seen Hamburger Hill all the way through. I've only seen bits and pieces of it.
I've seen that numerous times as a kid. Okay. Yes. Oh yeah.
Okay. Now that one came out in 87, and I watched a little bit of that in preparation for this conversation. So I didn't realize Courtney B. Vance was in it.
Don Cheadle.
Dylan McDermott.
Yep.
Weber, what's the actor's name? Steven Weber?
Steven Weber, yep.
Mm-hmm. Steven Weber's in it. And I'll tell you what, man, as things that don't hold up for me, as a 50-plus-year-old guy who considers himself to still be growing.
Yeah.
When I see them go to like the massage brothel and they get in the hot tub with the Vietnamese women after getting massaged.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, so these women are essentially probably sexual slaves, okay?
Right. Yeah.
They're having to use their bodies just to get out of a terrible, horrible situation that they found themselves in.
Yeah.
And you guys are good with it. War truly is hell. It truly is hell, because I was just like, ugh. And when they started kissing each other, I was like, okay, I'm not because they're kissing these women who are who are ladies of the evening. I'm going because they're kissing these dudes who are like, we came over here to kill, but we want to have sex with you first. Ugh.
Right.
Anyway,
going back to First Blood and what you were saying, and the implications therein, just with the PTSD and everything, even though it is a popcorn movie, just the way that it ended, really brought that issue home. So you're thinking, nobody was thinking there was going to be a sequel after that, but there was a sequel. And then there was also a competitor to that sequel. Because in 1984, you have Chuck Norris, who makes, and I fully admit this is a guilty pleasure of mine, Missing in Action. I love that movie. I'm sorry, yo. I love Missing in Action. That movie's my shit, man. I love Missing in Action, yo.
Chuck's World, man. Chuck's World.
It is. But what's so funny about that is now you're starting to have this theme of that was started with Uncommon Valor in '83. Hey, let's go back and get those, Missing in Action, as the title states, in these camps. Supposedly, they're still being held in North Vietnam. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. This time we win. This goes into the whole jingoistic era that Reagan is bringing about. You know what I'm saying? Upping the military budget. The army is everything. I even got swept up in it as a kid. Do you know when I was 8, I mailed off something to the Marines. I mailed off you could fill out something to get like information from the Marines. And I put my true age on there. And I was 8. And do you know they sent me back like a little packet or something? They sent me on an iron-on patch for a T-shirt that said Marines. Nice. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So even I got swept up in it. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Sure. And the films in this period from like about 83, 84 to about right before Platoon. You know what I'm saying? 85, 86. Really start to reflect that jingoism to a T. I mean, it is a 180 difference with the second, Rambo against the first one. Same thing with Missing in Action. Now you have a nation, instead of really trying to come to grips with these guys coming home, now they're like, no. You know what? We didn't lose. We're going to go back in there and kick their ass. We're going to go back there and kick the communist ass, And those movies made a lot of money. A lot of money. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It was around that time too, man. I believe where they were still finding soldiers over in Vietnam, where they were telling them that conditions of us losing certain embargoes and certain trade deficits and whatever, that you would release certain soldiers, or release the soldiers you still have in prisons and the concentration camps. I think John McCain might have been one of those.
Well, that was back in the 70s. Yeah, like he came out in the initial batch in the 70s. But they were still saying as late as the early 80s that supposedly there were still guys over there, what I'm saying, unaccounted for or whatnot, And, and just the movies reflected that before Platoon came around and just kind of tamped that down and said, no. This is the experience that, a semblance of the experience that was had over there. Right. So after Platoon, you have a whole spate of movies after that. But Swain, you were going to say something about those movies?
Well, I know you mentioned a few. I was going to throw out there also too. Good Morning Vietnam with Robin Williams in 1987. Yeah. Dee mentioned earlier Born on the 4th of July. Yeah. Which starred crime. Did Oliver Stone direct that?
He wrote and directed it with Ron Kovic. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, Born on the 4th of July, and then you have other things after that. But I was going to throw out there, to some extent, Forrest Gump in 1994. It's not a Vietnam movie, but the sequence with Vietnam felt good. It felt. I felt peril. I felt. The sense of loss, like for Lieutenant Dan. I felt like Lieutenant Dan was Barnes, but he got his legs blown off before he could be Barnes, to some extent. I mean, that sequence in the movie, and then also the fact that, that Forrest, I don't think he got drafted. He enlisted in the Army,
Yeah.
And Oliver Stone, likewise, enlisted in the Army, as a, a well-off kid, enlisted in the Army and requested to be in combat duty, and ended up getting injured. So anyway, I thought that sequence felt like, okay, wow, this actually feels like some of those previous efforts. The other one, and you all are going to laugh when I say this, maybe not, but Kong Skull Island.
What the man? What?
Have you seen it, D?
I've seen parts of it, which I can see. I can see the whole vibe that you're headed for. But so if you're gonna do that, go ahead. If you're gonna do that, I'll go right. So you say about that first. Go ahead.
Okay, Kong Skull Island takes place in the 70s.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're going on a mission. Sam Jackson is essentially Captain Ahab. He's Barnes. He's the hardened, older, senior person who's leading this young troop. They get on helicopters. They fly in. They don't tell them what they're getting into. They encounter the ape. The ape smashes the helicopters out of the sky. So the whole movie really is American troops coming into a situation that they can't handle. They don't know what they're up against. The enemy is 10 stories tall, but he's essentially invisible because they didn't expect him. Mm-hmm. And then Sam Jackson's character becomes hell-bent on, I'm going to take this motherfucker out. I'm going to win this. By all costs, I'm going to win this. And it literally comes down, the end of the movie literally almost comes down to a standoff between him and King Kong. Mm-hmm. And there's napalm, and there's fire bombs, and there's the camaraderie between the soldiers. There's the sequence where Brie Larson's character plays a photographer, and she does the obligatory. She takes photos of the guys, and they're aping for the camera and posing, and you see them. It's all of those things, except it has a giant monster in it. That's it.
And I can see these gears spinning where you're going. I know exactly where you go. Go ahead.
You know where I'm headed.
Go ahead. Bring it.
So take that, and several years later, fast forward to let's say around 1985, we have a group of expert soldiers that are dropped into a jungle to face an unseen enemy.
Yes.
That then they have no idea what they're up against. They end up all dying except for the one that decided I'm as bad as you are. I'm gonna take you out.
Right.
I'm talking about Predator, first Predator, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And you know I was going with that already.
Yeah, as Swizz was saying it, I was looking at you the whole time, and I could see both our gears. Like, wait a minute, that sounds like,
right. but yeah, man. So there's something about the jungle, man, aspect of things, and having to find your way through some of this unknown territory. And that makes that ups the ante for any kind of story. And when you bring soldiers and the unknown into it, and someone trying to kill those soldiers into it, it changes everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, man.
Yeah. Man. I mean, it might not have been Vietnam in Kong Skull Island or in Predator,
right?
But the aesthetics were
it's
there.
Essentially, it's the aesthetics, and it feels the same. If you watch, and I'll be honest with you, Kong Skull Island is very entertaining.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's very entertaining. I'm not like a giant monster type guy like Pacific Rim or any of that stuff, but it's pretty entertaining.
Okay.
And largely because of Sam Jackson in the cast. I think his name's Kevin Mitchell, the guy who played Eazy-E in the Straight Outta Compton movie. He's in it. There's some other character actors that you know. John Goodman's in it. Brie Larson's in it. Tom Hiddleston is in it. He plays like the badass, the badass contractor that comes along with the soldiers, but he's, I'm not a soldier kind of guy. So
I got you.
Anyway, that was a real derailment of this conversation. Go ahead.
But that was a good one. I like that. I appreciate that.
Segues.
All right. So getting back on track, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. With Platoon, though, you do have more of an effort to get movies out there that kind of reflect that same aesthetic, if you will. So you do have things like Hamburger Hill, and then you have another big one, another touchstone that many people will say. Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket.
From
1987. You know? And what's so what's so interesting about this movie is, and I didn't realize this until I thought about it as an adult. I saw this as a kid, believe it or not. You know what I'm saying? And it didn't fuck me up at all. Even with the whole training sequence and Private Pile and all of that, you know, that stuff kind of almost washed over me. And it didn't hit me until I was an adult. But Full Metal Jacket really is two different movies in one. It really is. The first half is, how do you take young men and turn them into trained killers by breaking them down, assaulting them, you know, verbally, you know, physically.
Maggots.
Yeah, exactly. And turning them into killers. And then the second half is, now they have to take that training and go out in the field, and it comes down to, when it's time to use that training, how once people start shooting, some of that stuff goes out the window. You know what I'm saying? And by the most unlikeliest of threats. You know what I'm saying? And so with that, I think many people will cite, if you ask them about a Vietnam movie, name a Vietnam movie, they will probably say Apocalypse Now, Platoon, or Full Metal Jacket. You know what I'm saying? Because it's infinitely quotable and everything, but I think many people are of the opinion that the first half of the movie is actually the strongest. You know, and even rewatching it now recently, I find that to be true. It's like, once they leave the training camp after Private Powell kills himself and everything, like the rest of the movie up until like the very end where they're facing off against the sniper, I almost check out on it. And even though there are some great lines in there and great quotables, it's almost like, the movie is like that. The training camp. That's it. You know what I'm saying? What about you guys?
Yeah, man. Actually, that's all I can remember is the dressing down sequence with Army. You know, the sergeant, he's going off on him, like, you know, I'll rip your neck off and I'll shit down your neck. And that's all I could, you know, that's a constant refrain from me when it comes to that movie. And then, of course, the character that kills himself, that was played by
Vincent D'Onofrio.
Kingpin.
Yes.
Kingpin later on, So I was like, wow, he's come a long way, man. And Vincent D'Onofrio, he's always kind of taken those risky roles and made him his own anyway. Like when he was playing in The Cell with Jennifer
Lopez.
He drove that home too, man. But I agree, Adrian. The first part of the movie was all I really could reflect on and remember, man. The rest of it was like, I fell asleep during it, I think, maybe a couple times.
Yeah, and you know, the thing about Vincent D'Onofrio is that he said that when he was coming up with how to play Private Powell, he said he wanted to play him. He studied Frankenstein, the movie Frankenstein, because because to him, he felt like what was being built here was a monster. You know what I'm saying? You know, like Powell comes in, it's like this goofball or whatnot.
Right.
But little by little, and under the duress of, you know, the drill sergeant played by R. Lee Ermey and his fellow classmates, when they beat him for that infraction of having that jelly donut in his footlocker.
The soap in the sock.
Oh man, now that part still makes me wince, because it's like, these supposed to be your boys, man, but they're your boys and they're administering this corporal punishment to your ass. And just to hear them sobbing and crying like a little kid. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Damn. Oh, man.
It's crazy.
And man, and then the way Kubrick just shoots the whole film is very detached. Like all these blues, and then even the soundtrack itself, like of the pinging, like just ting, 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 you know, just, oh man. And then just that waning kind of synth, just really puts just really puts it on there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, man. Isn't this the same film that the sergeant starts off? See that man next to you, to the left of you? That's your brother. Is that quotable from that, or is that from another film?
That's from another film, bro. Yeah, man.
The quote I remember from the dressing down is the best part of you ran down the crack of your mother's ass and made a brown spot on the sheet.
God damn, yes. Oh, man. No, or he said something about.
You had best unfuck yourself, or I will unscrew your head and shut down your neck. How tall are you, Private?
Sir, 5'9", sir.
5'9". I didn't know they stacked shit that high. You trying to squeeze an inch in on me somewhere, huh?
Sir, no, sir.
Bullshit. It looks to me like the best part of you ran down the crack of your mama's ass and ended up as a brown stain on the mattress.
Damn.
Yeah, man.
I was like, wow. That jump was crazy. That was crazy.
He was going off, man. He was going off on him, man. Dressing down hardcore.
Yeah, and the thing about Full Metal Jacket is that, when you watch it now, especially in the second half of the movie where they're actually over there in Nam, even as a kid, I realized for some reason, I didn't know that this was filmed in England until I was much older.
Yeah.
But I kept wondering, why is it so gray? Why do they keep using that one chopper? Why is it not a Huey? Where is this? Where is that?
Right.
Why is it these old buildings? Yeah.
That's fucking Kubert one. I've never liked Stanley Kubert's directing style. It's always too slow and just slow and drippy. Just the glacial pace is just too much for me. But yeah, same thing. When I first saw it way back in the day, I was like, okay, this is not Vietnam. I thought it was like New Zealand or something. It was just like, okay, it's just overcast as fuck, and it just didn't look like it. It didn't feel like it, Yeah, none of that. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and this leads into also a period where a lot of the I hate to say Vietnam mania, but the thirst for this type of material actually bled on to television as well. So you have like Tour of Duty on CBS around this time. Very popular show. And then China Beach also on ABC.
Yes.
Yeah. And you had all of these throughout the rest of the decade, throughout the late 80s, a lot more of these Vietnam movies coming to the fore. Like you have Bat 21 with Gene Hackman, Danny Glover. You got Off Limits in '88 with Willem Dafoe, who stars in quite a few Vietnam movies. You know what I'm saying? And Gregory Hines. You got The Iron Triangle in '89 with Beau Bridges. Another one that's a guilty pleasure as a kid, but I can't stand to watch it now. Platoon Leader from Canon Films in 1989. like it's that Dollar Tree knockoff with Platoon Leader, and it stars the guy that played in American Ninja, Michael Dudikoff, who is nobody's tough guy. He is nobody's tough guy, man. And it's like, no, stop it, just stop it, stop it. And
of course that opening singles with the
that's my shit. But then you have like two movies at the end of the decade that were pretty good and kind of wrap up the 80s period as far as like Vietnam movies. You got Born on the 4th of July by Oliver Stone, as you mentioned earlier. And there's another one that not a lot of people mention, but it is quite good if you get a chance to watch it. It's The Siege of Firebase Gloria with R. Lee Ermey and Wings Hauser.
Oh, okay.
I've never heard of this film. Oh, wow.
Whoa, really? Oh, man. It's great. It's great. In fact, I grew up on that. Like, my dad brought it home. It's a B movie, for sure, but I mean, very authentic in terms of depicting, like, life on a fire base. You know what I'm saying? Like, it definitely has some popcorn moments to it. I'm not going to get anything wrong there. But very good late 80s Vietnam movie, for sure, for sure. It's The Siege of Firebase Gloria, And then coming into the 90s, you start getting a sense of, the tide is kind of turning. And I think that is also due to the fact of the first Gulf War as well.
Of course, yeah.
So you start having like another different type of war altogether, beginning to come into the zeitgeist, and Vietnam kind of moving to the rear, so to speak. Even though there are movies still being made, like you had a movie about the air war in Vietnam, Flight of the Intruder in 1991. And then you come to like the middle of the 90s where you have a few movies made about the black experience in Vietnam. You have stuff like in 95, you got Dead Presidents by the Hughes brothers. And man, I love that movie. Dead Presidents is fantastic to me. I love it, man. And I
rewatched it yesterday and enjoyed it more. Like Platoon, I enjoyed it more than I did when I first saw it back in the day. And I agree with you that although I don't think it's a great film, I think maybe it was a little out of the reach of the Hughes brothers' skills at the time. I think they were still young filmmakers, so they were things that I feel like if they were making it now, it would be a better looking film. It would feel differently. Some more of the things that they tried would work. But I think the story itself I thought was great because you do follow, as we mentioned earlier, you follow Lorenz Tate's character, Anthony Curtis, right?
That's right.
Yeah, and you follow him going from where he lives in America and his life before that and the people that he knows, and then he goes and joins the military against the wishes of his parents. Yeah. Has this crazy experience, meets these other crazy people. He meets Bokeem Woodbine's character who is losing it.
Yes.
His friend Chris Tucker, who plays his friend, he's there. Yeah. And he's a drug addict, and you just see all of this stuff happen to him, and then when he comes back, his girlfriend who he left when she was pregnant, they reunite, and you see how his life just kind of unravels. He can't really make money, can't hold down a job, and so he gets drawn into a life of crime, and this big heist, and that's where the image of the chalked faces and all that comes from. But yeah, I enjoyed it more because of the story and what it was talking about. It again, poor kids who maybe don't have a whole lot of options, and they kind of get fooled into this, going and doing this thing, or they do it on a lark, and then that's it. They're changed forever.
Yeah, but, and it's funny because the thing about it is that it actually has a semblance of quite a few other Vietnam movies in it. I mean, you have the judge at the end who passes the verdict, Martin Sheen. He obviously played in Apocalypse Now.
Right.
You got Keith David. Obviously played in Platoon. He's in it. It's Kirby.
Kirby.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? And then you also have the semblance of, it's almost like The Deer Hunter in that you see like the misadventures that Anthony and his friends get into before they go over there. You know what I'm saying? They're just young dudes doing their thing. Right. Whatever, getting caught up and all. And then once they go off to the war and have these crazy experiences and really see this stuff happen, now they come back home and they're trying to process these things and they can't quite grasp it. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, man, and I just thought, to me, it was well done. And I agree with you, Swain, just in terms of the Hughes brothers were very young at the time, definitely. But there's something about that, some of those stylistic choices that were pretty good to me, but just the fact that they took influence from these other Vietnam movies and other actors from those movies and put them in there. And I think it just really helped it, and just in terms, again, just the overall bringing that experience somewhat, the black experience from Vietnam, was something that you rarely see. And the other movie that I was going to mention too about that along those same lines was, have you guys ever heard of this movie called The Walking Dead from 1996? Had Joe Morton, Alan Payne, and Eddie Griffin in it.
No.
When you sent the note over, I saw the title and it sounded familiar, but when you say Alan Payne, now I'm sure I've seen part of it before. I know I have.
Yeah. Yeah, he wears glasses in that one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I saw that in the theater. Like, my mom was always taking me, Me and my mom went to go see it. And, I'm sitting there 16 with my arms folded. I was like, hey, wait a minute. That's not how that, no. They wouldn't have been up in the trees. No, they wouldn't have did that. But looking back at it now, it just played recently, a few months ago on cable. And I was like, I ain't seen this since I saw it in the theater. You know what I'm saying? And I was struck by this is one of the few movies that even attempts to have a semblance of that black experience in Nam. You know what I'm saying? So for that, I'm like, okay. But it kind of falls into some of the cliches, that you would expect from a movie like that with brothers in it and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But, so with that, speaking of cliches, this is what I wanted to get into.
I'm rubbing my hands together, yo.
Drum roll. Yes. The other byproduct of, Vietnam war movies, and I think war movies in general, as Hollywood has produced them, is that you do start to have cliches that replicate themselves in seemingly every production,
For sure.
And in particular, yes.
Go ahead.
In particular with Vietnam War movies, okay?
Yes, man.
There is a cliche, all right? One of the cliches to me, one of the biggest ones that is almost abused is, it's not Vietnam if you don't hear Motown, Jimi Hendrix, or Painted Black.
Yes.
It's not Vietnam. Vietnam didn't happen. It didn't happen if you don't hear that. No.
Yep. There's one radio station you get at the down the river, and it only plays Tears of the Clown, Painted Black, All Along the Watchtower. That's all you hear. or Hey Joe or some shit.
or sometimes with a smattering of Baby Love by Diana Ross and Supreme.
Exactly. So it's always the music. Man. When you guys got any cliches, man?
Oh man, I have one cliche name I throw out there, and that's Steven Seagal, and he's always the wannabe disenchanted, warrior supreme that goes these places and has the ability to kick everybody's ass, but he doesn't have he has this stoic passive look on his face that I'm not really here to hurt you. I left it behind a long time ago. But if you come with me, that kind of thing, man.
Yeah.
It's just
he played in Above the Law, in his first Hollywood film. They have a flashback to him in Vietnam, and even though he's supposed to be playing a younger guy, it's still Steven Seagal. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
And he's a sailor in Under Siege.
As a vet,
Is he a ex-soldier in
he's an ex-SEAL.
Marked for Death?
No, he works for the FBI or one of those agencies like that. Not CIA, but he's an investigative agent.
Which one is the one that he's with the screw fist? Is that Marked for Death?
Yes, that was Marked for Death. Yes, screw fist.
Okay.
Yeah,
screw fist. I was gonna say, man. So you've got to have the new person who's coming to the crew. You see a lot of that. You always see, of course, the hardened leader. The hardened, kind of a stoic leader who's seen it all and done it all.
Yeah.
You've got to have the motley crew of different personalities and weird nicknames and and that kind of thing. And they all they got to give each other shit and call each other names and all of that. Yeah. And then there must be the inevitable fight between soldiers. Hey, all right, now break it up. Break it up. You gotta have, two soldiers who don't get along. And the other one I thought about is there must be the scene where some soldier either pulls out a picture or a letter and then kind of laments about how much they miss home and I got a girl and when I get back I'm gonna open up a store like my daddy did or something like that, and you're like, okay, I know either you're gonna die or you're gonna get blown, your legs are gonna get blown off or something, because this dream of yours definitely ain't gonna happen.
and the other one I thought about too was that and it happens in Apocalypse Now, and there's a couple more in other Vietnam movies I've seen too. But the first time I saw it was in Apocalypse Now. It's where Martin Sheen's character and the other character Lance, they go to the bridge, right? And these black guys are shooting into the jungle, just like, I'm gonna get you, yeah, motherfucker, yeah. And they call this one guy out with the M79 grenade launcher. I forget what his name was, but he don't say nothing. He's like, man, get him. He comes out, bloop, and you hear the Viet Cong out there, die, GI, die.
Yeah.
He got him, and Martin Sheen just kind of looks at him and says,
Hey, soldier. Do you know who's in command here?
Yeah.
and then walks back to his bunker. I was like, and there's always that silent type in a lot of Vietnam movies, man. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Just like, he's a badass, but he'll say nothing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. or the one that's got a death wish, yo.
Yeah.
Like the one that's got a death wish doesn't care anymore. It's like, don't get too close to Hanson. You know, he's got 1 foot in the grave, 1 foot in the bullet, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's kind of the other thing, too. You've always got to have kind of the druggy soldier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and a lot of them, a lot of those dudes did go over there and become addicted to drugs and would come back and would be messed up.
Yeah.
But the other thing too is like what Adrian, kind of what you were touching on with First Blood, where after a while the idea of someone, being messed up and having flashbacks and coming back from Vietnam kind of became a thing where it was like, okay, everybody didn't get PTSD.
Right.
Everybody didn't have flashbacks. They almost started being called Vietnam flashbacks.
Yes.
People would reference them as that. And even there was an element of that in Jacob's Ladder.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with Tim Robbins. There was there was an element of that in that, too. I think there was some magic in that movie as well, or some kind of spirituality thing as well. But definitely that. And also, too, like, because you have such an ensemble of characters, you kind of have, like, your typical Southern person, your typical New Yorker. They're going to throw in, 1 or 2 black guys who really are there and they're going to do what they're supposed to do. But in their hearts of hearts, they're not down with this shit. Okay. They're like, how did I end up here? What have I done to deserve this? And,
nice. Pet shop reference there.
And in some cases, I want to say, haven't there been, maybe I'm thinking about like World War II movies as well. Well, they'll have a character like in a World War II movie, they will have a Japanese American soldier with the other Americans, and that person is having to obviously fight another battle, being Japanese or Japanese, and then but still wearing, an American uniform or whatever. But
well, see, the thing with that is that's how that was kind of the tenuous relationship between the Americans and their South Vietnamese counterparts, the ARVN, Army of Republic of Vietnam. Just like they regarded the ARVN as like, man, they are not good soldiers at all. We're giving them all this equipment, and all they're doing is just fucking things up. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's just like, man, the ARVN, they were like, man, we're trying to fight here. But some of them weren't trying to fight. They were like, man, when the North Vietnamese get close, I'm gone. I'm out. You know what I'm saying? Right. Yeah.
Which is funny, man, because going back to Platoon, man, it was interesting how Charlie Sheen's character, that's not Charlie Sheen, Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen's character was a two-timer, and you heard 2 times in the war, you go back home to the bases and you're done. Well, it's interesting how Corey Glover's character stabbed his own self with a knife in the end, so he had to go back for a second time. This is going to be his end of tour. So self-inflicted wounds get you out of the service too. But nobody's there to see him do it himself. So they thought he was taken in battle because a lot of people died.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting, kind of cool, and kind of funny too at the same time. So what the hell is he doing? Is he stabbing himself in the leg so he has to go back? Go back into service.
Well, they call it the $1 million wound. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the one that gets you sent home, back out into the quote unquote the world. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Adrian, what did you think, and Dee, what did you think of the sequences in the HBO's Watchmen, that did take place in Vietnam, and the use of that within the story, because, I think about, of course, you do have like, somebody who, I think it was a kid or a teenager or whatever, and he secretly had a bomb or whatever and ends up blowing up Regina King's parents and making her an orphan. Yeah, but the idea that, you have the Vietnam War, but it's a different kind of a war in this universe, and she's born there, so she's Vietnamese American.
By proxy, yeah.
She essentially is Vietnamese American, and then she comes back home to live with her, it was her aunt, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Or her grandmother, I forget. Maybe her grandmother. I think it was her grandmother. I can't remember.
Well, she's going to, because she died before she got back.
Yeah, before she got back. But just even the sequences that you did see, and then as it relates to like the comic, where in the comic, we see Dr. Manhattan being used as the ultimate Bob Barnes or the ultimate, napalm or weapon or whatever to help America win the war. Like, that was kind of interesting to me because it didn't really, in either of those cases, the comic or in the TV show, neither one of them made use of the tropes or the the things that we normally see over and over again in movies like this.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. I think, and that was one of the things that that wasn't the same war. So forget that. I was going to say, and even in the other HBO series, Lovecraft Country, but that was World War II, so that didn't not the same thing.
Right.
But yeah, man, yeah. I mean, you're right. It was interesting to see that. Okay, the war is over. Here we are. We're all in Hanoi. And we're chilling out. They're doing a parade now based on the fact that the quote unquote Americans won the war, and we're occupying. We have a base here occupying Vietnam, and everybody thought they were safe.
Vietnam was a state. Remember?
Yeah, it was a state in the Union.
It was a part of the United States now. It was the ultimate move in colonialism.
That's right.
When you think about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is crazy. Yeah. Right. Exactly. Which is crazy. So yeah, it's like, and they thought they were safe, and they really weren't.
Yeah.
And they took them out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like it would be like, but the strange thing is that it still fit in with the continuity of Vietnam still fighting off its occupiers. Vietnam has always had a history of fighting off the occupiers, be it the French, being the Japanese in World War II, and then by proxy, the Americans who came over there to help South Vietnam, but still the North Vietnamese felt like you're still in our country, impeding our progress to unify the country. So you're still occupiers as well. So even though in Watchmen, in that continuity, you have Vietnam being a state now, it's occupied by the United States, and there are still elements there that would feel like, no, we're going to use any means necessary to to defy this.
Here.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
I was doing some reading, and so from my understanding is I guess it was it Eisenhower who had the domino theory?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Where he was like, okay, if one country, totally goes, communist, then other countries will follow after it. So that was part of the reason why there was so much concern about the communist aggression coming from the North Vietnam into the South. It was like, okay, if they take over the South, that's it. Then we'll have a large country, with some strength and with some power and some numbers, and it's completely communist. And so the North Vietnamese were kind of sponsored and helped by the Chinese and the Russians, correct? Or the Soviets?
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Like supplying them and saying, because, they were communists and they were like, do your thing, shorty, we got you, Right. But I was going to share a story, not a story really, but I remember talking to my pops and talking to him about the Vietnam War. So my father was went into the Army. He and my mother got married. He went into the Army. My mother got pregnant. She was actually pregnant before that. And so my sister was born in 1963.
Okay.
And they were stationed in Alaska and got sent back like literally a month before my sister was born. She was almost born in Alaska, which I've been meaning to tell her would be a much doper thing to say than you were born in Chicago. Although Chicago is awesome, but to say you were born in Alaska would just be kind of a dope thing to say.
Yeah,
but
indeed.
I remember asking my pops, hey, did you ever think that you were going to be sent into combat in Vietnam? Because Sis was born in '63. He didn't get out until like '67. So that was right as things were starting to ramp up. I think the war we officially entered the Vietnam War in '64.
Yes.
So we're a few years in, and people are starting to hear about bodies coming back and people being blown up and jungles and what the fuck. And I remember him saying that he had made up his mind that if they sent him over there and he had to go into combat, that he would go ahead and go, and he would do what he had to do when he got over there. And which was it's kind of a chilling thing to hear, but he was a 20-something-year-old kid.
Right.
And I suspect now, he would think differently about those things and what he was being asked to do. But but another thing is I was trying to think. I said, do I know anybody whose parents would have been old enough to have been, like maybe children, during the Vietnam War? And I texted my coworker, my buddy Twan. Both his parents were born in Vietnam.
Wow. Okay.
And I was asking him, and he said, I said, well, were they kids? And he said, no. He said, so this is the interesting part. He said that when his father and his mother got here, the government gave them birth years, because in Vietnam at that time they didn't have birth certificates. Everything was a guesstimate.
Oh wow!
So they told his father, "Yeah, you were born in '51." So that would make his father about 70 years old. And Twan says his oldest sister is, I think, maybe 50. But like the fact that they just give you a birth year or whatever was just like,
that's crazy.
That was crazy to me. But Twan said that he said, "Oh no," he said, "My father's a little bit older than you think, and he actually did fight in the war." And we're just kind of texting back and forth.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting to me because I just had no idea in terms of just the differences in society. So keeping that in mind, when you go back to, like, let's say a scene in Platoon where they're in the village and there's a family there, that's what's up. The only way really that we know we exist is if we stay alive.
Right.
There are no records.
Right.
That's the other part that's so tragic about him killing the mother and killing that kid, and Bunny killing that kid. The only way the world will ever know we're alive is if we're alive to talk about the fact that we're alive, because there are no records, there are no social security numbers that I know of, apparently, and apparently there are no birth certificates. So, that's it. And that's why these traditions and why these things are so important, and why it really is an invasion into their country when, we show up with our tanks and our guns walking around like we own the fucking place.
Yeah, and not to mention that you also have, like, they designated areas, free fire zones, too. So you have, like, these non-violent villagers, just people trying to mind their own business, caught between both sides. You have the VC by night who come into the villages and say, stash these weapons or else, or else we'll kill you. And then the Americans by day who might find those weapons and say, where these weapons come from? Obviously they're VC, so you're VC. Right. Exactly. So we're going to accost you as well. So it's just really just a huge human tragedy, and all the atrocities done, not only by the North Vietnamese, but by the Americans as well, as has been brought to light. You know what I'm saying? Far too many, And I just really think that part of the war, has rarely been seen on screen, because the last thing I wanted to mention, just in terms of these Vietnam movies, is that coming up to the 2000s, you do have a couple of Vietnam movies made then. You have We Were Soldiers in 2002 with Mel Gibson. Yes. And the thing I wanted to comment about that is that that's obviously post 9/11. So the whole country is kind of on knife point in terms of its patriotism, So you even have stuff like Pearl Harbor and other movies like around that time that are very returning almost to that jingoism of, Rambo First Blood Part 2 and Missing in Action, although they're depicting actual historical events this time.
Right.
But you can't have it end on a note that's downtrodden because we're so sore after 9/11, it has to be uplifting to a certain point. So with the battle depicted in We Were Soldiers, it was a terrible battle. It was like the first major battle of the Vietnam War with U.S. ground troops, and we were trounced terribly, and you couldn't have it just end on a note like that. It had to be us winning that battle and beating them back for the time being. Just like the same thing with Pearl Harbor. You can't end with just Pearl Harbor being bombed. We got to skip forward where we show them bombing Tokyo. Like, yeah. So that's the kind of sense that you get, from movies, especially post 9/11, because that happened obviously, early in the decade. And then after that, you have Rescue Dawn with Christian Bale about the downed pilot in North Vietnam, which I've never seen. And I'm like,
Now, for that movie, did Christian Bale actually immerse himself in the role and become Vietnamese?
man, that's hilarious.
He lost his whiteness so that he could actually become Vietnamese.
Man, that's funny.
Man, I got a question for you, Adrian, and you guys. I want to see what you think about this.
Okay.
Do you think, in terms of the idea behind, especially movies that are pseudo-real depictions of wars like Vietnam or World War II and so on and so forth, that have these great moralistic endings, is an attempt to retell the American standing in terms of how things really went?
In fact, I'm glad you brought that up, D. That's one of the last points I really wanted to make. An overall point over these two-part this two-parter that we're doing. I was thinking about that earlier today in those terms. Take like, for instance, something like Saving Private Ryan. Okay, the first 20-25 minutes of them storming Omaha Beach is harrowing. I mean, it is probably the most realistic, most harrowing depiction of D-Day ever committed to film. Ever. Yeah. Period. Won't be beaten. Longest day, whatever. Won't be beat. But I have not watched that in years because anything after that just seeps into sentimentality. Where it's just like, nah, I'm not buying. No. Sorry, Stephen. No. No. And I've not watched it for years because of that. Whereas something like Platoon, or even, get this, you might not have realized this, but even The Big Red One, both of them are written and directed by combat veterans. The man who directed and wrote The Big Red One, Samuel Fuller, I love his stuff. I have his memoir as well. Been a long-time fan. And it's based on his experiences. As crazy as they were in the film, they actually happened to him. You know what I'm saying? And same thing with Stone. Obviously Platoon is, autobiographical in a lot of instances too. And you can sense the difference between those two movies and something like Private Ryan. These two movies are made by people who actually went through combat and know how quick death can arrive to you. Know about the true camaraderie of guys under these conditions. Know about the detail and stuff that you wouldn't consider unless you were there, versus someone like Spielberg, who is making the best he can with the skills he has, and entertainment that
epic,
right? To get a semblance of that, but it still doesn't have that true veracity of someone who was actually there. Yes. So to your point, I totally agree with what you're saying. There is some rewriting done on some of these movies, to match that jingoistic ideal, if you will, of America. Might. Yeah, for sure.
And that's dangerous, man. Go ahead.
Adrian, I agree with you, man. As far as Saving Private Ryan goes, it's just, for me, for most of the time, when I see Tom Hanks, you know what you're going to get. You kind of know what you're gonna get, and yeah, definitely the sentimentality and just like no real fear.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's no real peril that I was aware of watching that movie. Like I said, okay, I know somebody's gonna die.
Sure,
but it won't be Tom Hanks, right?
Well, no, I figured it would. Yeah, he did die, and I figured it would be him.
That's right. Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, yeah, one person, maybe two people are gonna die, but it's not like it's not just like, in other words, if this is a kamikaze mission for this group, you get a sense of the foreboding long before it happens.
Okay.
Like kamikaze movies and movies that aren't going to end well for anybody, you kind of feel it from the beginning. You know, you felt it in like the Big Red One, or you felt it in Rogue One. You know, you felt it. There are other movies where it's like, okay, yeah, none of y'all are really gonna make it to daylight. I don't think. But anyway, I'll give you the last word. We'll give you the last word, Adrian.
Yeah. Well, you know, I guess to sum everything up, you know, I would just say, like, you know, for most of my life, as cheesy as that sounds, but it's the truth. You know, since I was a little kid, you know, I've always been enveloped by military history, and it's in particular American military history. And, you know, it's through like the evolution of these movies, especially like, you know, Vietnam War movies, to where it spurred me to learn more about the history and the underbelly of it that really, you know, was kind of cast under the rug by just other things that you had seen in popular culture. And once I did more research and reading of my own, you really find out how truly awful and truly terrible war is. As if you had to be told that, but reading that and getting a semblance of that in your mind really puts a different spin when you rewatch these movies. You know what I'm saying? And I think going forward, that's how I view military history now. Now, unfortunately, or, you know, in some ways, there's always going to be some type of vicariousness, you know, to watching, you know, these harrowing, you know, feats of combat and so forth. But I now have a better understanding as an adult of what these men and women, in some cases, you know, really went through, you know, in these theaters of war, you know, and it makes me appreciative of, you know, the freedoms that we have as well.
Definitely. And I guess I'll take the last word and say, go see Kong Skull Island.
There we go. Yeah, that's it right there.
Nice.
That concludes this episode of Sidebar Forever, hosted by Dwight Clark, Swain Hunt, and Adrian Johnson. You can find us online at sidebarforever.com. Any emails or questions can be directed to us at sidebarforever@gmail.com. And also, subscribe to us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.